Hey everybody, this is Alex Brissett from alexbrissettcoder.com, and you're listening to part 2 of building Auth in an Express app. So in the first video, we just created our Express server, we made our Mongoose connection, so we have a server that connects. In this video, what we're going to do is actually create the user authentication. So first, we actually have to have the ability to have users. That's step 1, which means we need to create a way to store users in our database. So to store any particular data in a Mongo database using Mongoose, we need to create a model. So I'm going to create a user model. Okay, so user.js. Okay, and then I bring in, well, actually I don't need all of Mongoose. I really just need the schema and I need the model. That's really all I need. Okay. Now, let's see here. I can then, that's going to equal require Mongoose. We're pulling those items from the Mongoose library. And then next, what I want to do is create, I want to create the schema. So const user schema equals a new schema. Schema takes an object that describes what it looks like. I'm going to keep it real simple. Everyone's going to have a username, which is a string, and everyone's going to have a password, which is also a string. Okay, and then that will be the extent of it. Yeah, usually it would be better if I made it required. I just will do it real quick. Okay. So it's gonna be like type string. Is it required? True, you have to have a username. Does it have to be unique? True. Same thing with password. Okay, so it's a type string, and you have to have a password. Wait, speaking of passwords, it reminds me there's another library we need. Okay, so I'm going to kill my server if it's running, and then I'm going to also Mpm Install Bcrypt Js. The proper library is just Bcrypt, but Bcrypt, what it does, it compiles from like source code. So there's a possibility that your computer doesn't have the right libraries to compile it. So a good workaround, just to avoid that issue, I mean, using Bcrypt will always make sure you have the latest version of Bcrypt. But if you do run into an issue installing just plain old Bcrypt, you can always use Bcrypt JS, which is a pre-compiled version of Bcrypt, which can be used the exact same way. Okay, so npm install bcrypt. Okay, so that's going to be installed. We'll use that later. So I've created the schema. I might as well include the timestamps while I'm at it. So timestamps equals true. So again, the first object that I passed in, that defines the schema for a user. The second thing is there's like some extra options you can pass into any schema. Okay, so it takes 2 arguments, that constructor. Const user, so I'm making a user model. Again, this is not a Mongoose or Express lesson. That's why I'm going pretty quick here, because the main thing is going to be the authentication. Const user equals model. We define what collection users will be stored in. So I'll just say user. That'll be the collection in the database. And we're going to be using the user schema to define how this particular model works. And then we export the user. Okay. Module that exports. Been doing too much React lately. Okay. There we go. Save. Let Prettier do its thing. Cool. Okay, so that all looks fine and good. So we have a user model. Now we need to actually create routes on creating a user. So for that, we need a controller. So we're going to create a new file here, user.js. Actually, yeah, we'll just call it user.js. Okay, and then what we do here is we have to bring in, I have to bring in the user model. So that's going to equal require // in model / user. I need to bring in router from Express. So const router equals require Express. So I'm pulling router out of Express. Then I'm going to create a new router. So const router equals router. So a new router. And bottom line, the thing that this file exports is the router. So I'll just put that right at the bottom. Module that exports equals the router. This thing sends out the route. Okay, and then we also need to bring in bcrypt so we can encrypt passwords. Const bcrypt equals require bcrypt Js. Good. So generally, to do user auth, you need three routes: a route to create a new user, a route to log in, and a route to log out. Although I don't think you necessarily need the logout route on this end, because since we're doing this with tokens, it'll be incumbent on the front end to destroy any tokens that it's holding on to. Okay, so let's see here. Const oh, no, we don't do const. We just need to do router dot post, because this is going to create our user. So just say to /signup. Okay, /signup, and that should be a string. That's going to be the endpoint. Oopsies. Okay. Then we pass in our thing, and I'm going to make this async because I prefer async await. Okay. Then the next step is, so assuming that someone fills out a form, that they create a new user, so we have now a rec.body that has the user information. But we don't want to submit just a straight password. We want to encrypt the password. So the first thing to do is to take rec.body.password and turn it into something else. So it should be bcrypt.hash. Okay. And then what it takes is the salt, which is just a word. Okay. Actually, we're going to say 10 as the salt. And what? Actually, no, the first thing is going to be password. So see, we have the salt, the string, the salt, and those are the only two arguments it looks like. That's the beauty of VS Code. Okay, I don't have to go look at the documentation because a lot of things self-document themselves because they have TypeScript versions where that's all detailed in the TypeScript types. Yay for TypeScript. So the string is rec.body.password. And 10. Okay, that's going to be the number of salts. We'll wait. Okay. I'm going to console log the password just to make sure that it all, actually, we don't even need to do that. Okay, so that'll salt the password, and it'll wait for the password to be hashed. So once we do that, the next thing is to create the user. So that's going to be const new user equals await user dot create, and we pass in rec.body for the new user. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just do a res.json the new user. So we're sending back the new user as a response, and that's it. There we go. You can now sign up as a user. Now here's the thing, since I'm using async await, this doesn't handle errors. So if there's an error, it's going to shut down my server. I'd rather that not happen. So you want to handle the error, so that way something productive happens with the error instead of it just shutting down. So I'm going to create what's called a try catch block. what this does, it's going to run the code in the error block, in the try block. If it's successful, then life's good. But if for some reason any code in the try block fails, the catch block will run. The error gets passed into the catch block, and then I can, do something like return the error. So we'll say res.json. Okay, and then I'll put the error in an object, so that way make sure it gets sent as JSON. And what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that the statuses are clear. It should figure out what the statuses should be pretty well, but it's always good to be explicit. So 400 error code means like error, like something bad happened. 200 means everything's okay. So generally, like, there we go. So new user, we hash the password, we then create the user, and then we return the new user as JSON. That's it for now. Okay, so that's the sign up route. Then let's do the login route, router.post login/login. Okay. Async rec res. Okay, and then what we want to do here is they're going to submit a username and password. First thing we need to do is see if there's a user by that username. Okay, so again, we're going to do this in a try catch block. So let me just first define that. Catch error. Okay, res.json error. And then again, let me put the status in there. Okay. Cool. So try block. So let's see here. First thing we want to do is pull up a possible user. So what I'm going to do to make my life easier is I'm going to destruct the username and password. Username, password from the request body. Because rec.body should have a username and password property in it if all went well. Okay. Then let's get const user equals okay, const user equals what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, await user dot find. So we may submit a request to see if there is a user with the user of username. And since the username property is the same, I can just pass it like this. So that it'll actually create a property called username with the value that's inside of it. Yay for like object shorthand. Okay, so that actually even makes it even more succinct. Okay, good planning. So user.find username, good. Because otherwise, if I didn't destructure it, I have to write like username colon rec.body.username, but that's even better. Okay, so now that I have the user, I need to check if the user actually exists. Because if no user exists, and the problem, it's going to return an array, actually. I always make this mistake. I only want to find one user. So I want to change this to find one so it returns a single object, not an array. Because it may only return an array of one object, but then I still have to like grab the item from the array. So this will make sure I only find one. So if user, so if the user exists, okay, if the user exists, then we want to check if the password exists. We'll come back to that. Else, that means the user doesn't exist. Then we're going to say res.json. So res status 400.json. Okay. Error. No user does not exist. Okay, so that makes it clear what was the problem with the login. Okay, so next step is let's compare. Okay, so we need to do bcrypt.compare. Okay, and I actually want to say, hey, if it const match equals await bcrypt compare, and bcrypt compare again takes a string and the hash string. So the string should be password. That's what the user passed in the form when they're trying to log in. And the thing from the database, which should be under user.password, okay, that should be the hashed version that we saved in the database. Okay, cool. So now we check if there was a match. So if there was a match, so we do an if on the match. If there was a match, then we're going to do more stuff. And else, we once again send a thing, res.status 400 dot JSON error password does not match. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. Okay, so now if the password does match, then what we wanted to do is create a token and basically return a JSON token. So we're going to say const token equals await, and I got to bring in JWT. So let's go back and import JWT. So const JWT, also referred to as JWT. Okay, require JSON web token. Okay. Now I can do JWT dot. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to sign a token. So there's sign and verify. Sign creates the token, verify checks the token. So we're gonna, no, not verify. I want to sign a token. Okay. Now sign, it's going to take the payload. That's the data we want to store in the token. Okay, which could be an object, a string, whatever. We need to pass in a secret key. That's what's going to use to kind of decode it. And that secret key is going to have to be used again when we verify it. That's how it knows it's specifically like our apps thing. Okay. And yeah, that's really all we need right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do, good habit, is to put your secret in your environmental variables. So my secret's just going to be, you know, Gouda cheese 5000. Okay. Why not? Okay. Now I go back to my controller. I need to make sure that I have my environmental variables. So I like to always put that as a first line, so there's no risk of some reference to a variable that doesn't exist. So I do require .env .config Okay, now my environmental variables are available. Good. I should probably destructure my secret. So const secret equals process.env, because that's where all my environmental variables will be hanging out. Yep, it's called secret. Just want to make sure that it all matches. Okay, secret. Okay, so now I can go back to here. The payload is going to be an object, okay, with the username. Okay, that's it. I don't want to put the password. That's a security risk if you put the password in there. I just want to send them the username so that way they have this token that has the username for future use. Okay, nice. And then what I want to pass in is the secret. So secret, and that decodes it. Cool. Okay, nice. So secret token. Nice. Save. And then once that token is created, then we do a res dot status 200 dot JSON. Okay, and then we're going to just send back the token. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll send it back in an object with a token in it. Okay, and yeah, that's good. Now let's run our server and test this out real quick. Node server.js. Let me go open up Postman, and then after this test, I'm going to end this video, and there'll be just one more piece for the middleware, to create the authentication middleware. Here we go. Postman. Again, open up Postman. I have a special command to open up Postman. That's not how it works out of the gate. Okay, again, we are on... Oh, I never connected the router. So we have our routes created. Good. So we have our login route and our signup route. And I exported this router, but I need to bring this into server.js. So that way the server sees it. So const auth router equals require dot slash controllers slash user. Then I'm going to go over here to routers and just write app.use. So when anyone goes to a URL that starts with auth /auth, that it sends them over to the auth router. Cool. So that will create the auth endpoint. Now let's restart our server. Is deprecated. Okay, it's just explaining about some of the functions I used. They're all fine. It all works. This is a deprecation warning saying you probably shouldn't use that. Localhost 3000 /auth /signup. So we need to sign up and create a new account. Okay, because auth comes from the way we defined our router, saying that, hey, only access that router when people type in /auth. And then in our controller, that route was referred to as /signup. So now I go to the body. I want to make sure that it's a raw JSON. And I'm going to put in username. And again, JSON, everything's got to get quotations. Alex Merced. Let's actually make that all lowercase. And password. Okay. Cheese. So now let's send that over. Oh, we got... Oh, because I have it making a delete request. Forgot to change this to a post request, is what we need. Let's send it over. And it worked. See there, it created a new user. See, so there's ID. Mongo always creates an ID. There's the username. See, the password got hashed. And that's a security measure. So see, when someone sees this, they don't know what my password is. Behind the scenes, Bcrypt is able to compare this to this, but someone would have to somehow figure out with this that this means cheese. And then there's the timestamps, because why not? And version number. Okay, that's what these things is what timestamps equals true gets us. Okay. Cool. Now let's see if the login route works. So it's the same username and password. Okay, so now I'm submitting it. It's going to check to see if there's a user by that username and do all those fun checks. So first let's do a successful one. Login. Up and see we got our token. Okay, so there's our token with our username. So there's our JSON token. And now let's see what happens if I try like a user that doesn't exist. See, user does not exist. Now let's see what happens if I try to mess up the password. Cheese2. Password does not match. Cool. So all working. We can sign up, create a new account, and we can log in. The only thing we need to do is now make it where our routes across our app will actually check to see if we're logged in. Because again, we're not using sessions here. We're using the token, and the front end has the token. So how's that front end going to use that token to check in with us? So that'll be the last video on this topic. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.